Picture the most secure place you have ever felt in your life. Maybe it was a childhood bedroom. Maybe it was a specific house. Maybe it was somewhere out in nature. Whatever it was, it had walls. It had shelter. It protected you from what was outside. Now imagine giving that up, voluntarily, walking away from the safest place your species had ever known into open, exposed, dangerous land. No walls, no ceiling, no protection from the wind, the rain, the predators, the cold. That is exactly what ancient humans did, and nobody fully understands why. For hundreds of thousands of years, caves were the gold standard of ancient human shelter. They were dry, they were naturally insulated, they protected against predators, they kept the wind out, they held fire smoke in a way that kept the interior warm. They were, by every measure, the perfect ancient home. And then, at some point in prehistory, ancient humans walked out, built their own structures, and never went back. So here is the question that archaeologists have been wrestling with for decades. What changed? What happened inside the ancient human mind that made a cold, open, self-built shelter feel better than the most naturally perfect home on Earth?
Before we can answer why ancient humans left caves, we need to correct something most people believe that is almost completely wrong. Ancient humans did not actually live in caves most of the time. This is one of the most persistent myths in all of popular history. We picture early humans as cave dwellers because caves are where we find the evidence. Cave walls preserved paintings. Cave floors preserved bones and tools and fire ash. Caves survived for tens of thousands of years in ways that open-air camps simply could not. But archaeologist João Zilhão, one of the leading researchers on Neanderthal and early human behavior, has repeatedly emphasized that cave sites represent only a tiny fraction of where ancient humans actually spent their time. The vast majority of ancient campsites were in open landscapes, by rivers, on hilltops, at the edges of forests, in places that gave them access to food, water, and movement. Caves were valuable, but they were not everywhere. A landscape might have one or two usable cave openings across hundreds of square kilometers of territory. A mobile group following animal herds, seasonal plants, and water sources could not afford to be tied to a fixed geological feature. So when we ask why ancient humans stopped living in caves, the more accurate question is actually this: why did ancient humans stop using natural shelters altogether? And why did they start building their own instead?
In 2023, archaeologists working at a site on the banks of the Colombo River on the border of Zambia and Tanzania made a discovery that forced scientists to rewrite the entire timeline of human construction. They found the remains of a deliberately constructed wooden structure. Two large logs had been cut, shaped, and joined together using a notch and groove technique. This was not accidental. This was planned, skilled carpentry, and it dated to approximately 476,000 years ago. 476,000 years ago. That is older than our own species. Homo sapiens did not even exist yet. The creature that built this structure was a human ancestor, but not a modern human, and it was already constructing permanent shelters out of wood. Professor Larry Barham of the University of Liverpool, who led the excavation, described the find as evidence of cognitive abilities far beyond what scientists had previously attributed to humans at that time. To build this structure, the ancient human who made it needed to plan ahead. They needed to understand that wood could be shaped into a specific form. They needed to predict how that form would behave under load and over time. They needed to imagine a future state and work toward it. This is not the behavior of an animal seeking shelter. This is the behavior of an architect. And it tells us something profound about why ancient humans eventually left caves behind. It was not that they found something better than caves, it was that they became capable of building something better than caves, anywhere they wanted, whenever they needed it.
Around 25,000 years ago, the Earth entered the coldest phase of the last ice age. Temperatures dropped, ice sheets expanded. The landscape across vast regions of Europe and Asia became open, treeless tundra, cold beyond what most modern humans have ever experienced. And here is the extraordinary thing. Ancient humans not only survived this, they thrived. And they did it by building shelters so sophisticated that archaeologists who first found them in the 20th century initially refused to believe ancient humans had made them. At multiple sites across Ukraine and Russia, archaeologists discovered circular structures built almost entirely from mammoth bones. Skulls, leg bones, tusks, and jaw bones, some weighing hundreds of kilograms each, were interlocked and stacked in deliberate architectural patterns to form walls and roof supports. The structures were up to 10 meters in diameter. They were insulated with animal hides. They had central fireplaces with carefully constructed ventilation.
In a landscape with no trees, no caves, and temperatures regularly dropping below -30 degrees Celsius, ancient humans engineered warm, stable, habitable structures out of the only large building material available to them, the bones of the animals they hunted. Researcher Olga Soffer, who spent years studying these mammoth bone dwellings, estimated that constructing a single structure would have required at least 60 individual mammoths accumulated over multiple hunting seasons and transported to the building site. This was not improvised survival. This was long-term planning, resource management, and communal engineering on a scale that required dozens of people working together toward a shared goal. The Ice Age did not force ancient humans into caves, it forced them to get better at building, and they did.
So if ancient humans were capable of building sophisticated shelters from the very beginning, what was actually driving the transition away from natural features like caves? The answer comes down to one word: control. A cave is fixed. You cannot move it, you cannot expand it, you cannot orient its entrance toward the morning sun or away from the prevailing wind. You cannot choose its location relative to the water source or the hunting ground. You take the cave where you find it and you adapt to it. A built structure is completely different. You choose the location, you choose the size, you choose the orientation, you choose the materials, you choose how many entrances it has, how high the walls are, how wide the roof is. And when you need to move, you take the knowledge of how to build it with you and you build it again somewhere else. Anthropologist Timothy Taylor of the University of Bradford has argued that the transition from natural shelters to built structures represents one of the most significant cognitive shifts in all of human prehistory. It is the moment when ancient humans stopped adapting to their environment and started adapting their environment to themselves. Every house ever built, from the first wooden structure on the Colombo River 476,000 years ago to the apartment building you might be sitting in right now, is a continuation of that same shift. The decision to stop accepting the world as it is and start reshaping it into what you need. That decision did not happen overnight. It happened slowly over hundreds of thousands of years as ancient human intelligence grew sophisticated enough to imagine not just what existed, but what could exist.
Think about the last time you rearranged a room, or repainted a wall, or moved to a new place and immediately started organizing it to feel like yours. That impulse is not superficial. It is not vanity. It is one of the oldest cognitive drives in the human lineage, the need to shape your environment rather than simply occupy it. Environmental psychologist Roger Ulrich at Texas A&M University has studied how humans respond physically to the spaces they inhabit. His research found that people in environments they have personalized and controlled show measurably lower cortisol levels, faster recovery from stress, and higher reported feelings of safety and well-being than people in identical spaces they have not modified. Control over your environment is not a comfort. It is a biological need, one that was written into your species the moment your ancestors first picked up a piece of wood, notched it deliberately, and decided that the world they were born into was not quite good enough, that they could do better. Every city on Earth is the result of that decision, made for the first time 476,000 years ago on the bank of a river in Africa.
Ancient humans did not stop living in caves because caves became dangerous. They stopped because they outgrew them. The cave asked nothing of them intellectually. It was simply there. And for a species whose mind was growing more powerful with every generation, simply being somewhere was no longer enough. They needed to build, to plan, to imagine a structure that did not yet exist and then make it real with their own hands. The cave paintings that have made ancient humans so famous were never really about the caves. They were about what happened when an intelligent mind found itself in a space with a flat wall and something to draw with. The cave was just the surface. The mind behind the hand was what mattered. Ancient humans left the caves the same way every generation eventually leaves the place that once kept them safe. Not because it failed them, because they were ready for something bigger, something they had to build themselves, something that could only exist because they imagined it first.
The mammoth bone structures in Ukraine were built by people standing in -30-degree cold with nothing but stone tools and intelligence. Next week on Ancient Mind, we are going inside one of those structures and finding out exactly what life inside looked like. Subscribe so you do not miss it. And drop a comment below. If you had to build a shelter from scratch with only natural materials around you right now, what would you use? I genuinely want to know.